In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the fog light kit on this Toyota Corolla. Let's get into it. Before we start installing this kit, I know wiring can be very intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. It's a very simple circuit, so let's break it down and make it easy. So I laid this all out so it's nice and easy to understand. Let's show you how it all works. You're going to start with your fog light connector that just goes to the light itself, and you're going to have one of those on both sides. So you're going to run the wires underneath the vehicle or underneath the hood where they're out of the way of any moving parts. Following this wire, you can see where this goes to a relay and also a fuse holder. And there is a fuse in there, and it happens to be a 15 amp fuse. Now that's going to protect the circuit from anything burning up. If anything shorted or anything, the fuse is going to burn instead of the wires. Close that up. And then you have your first connection that you're going to need to make. This is going to have to go to battery positive. Now, because of the length of the wire, the battery can either be on the passenger side or on the driver's side. If it's on the driver's side, you're going to use this wire and then just move it over to the driver's side. Again, keeping the wiring out of the way of any moving components. Moving over to this side, you can see where you have a ground wire. Now you're going to attach that to a ground on the vehicle. You can use some metal part on the vehicle. Sometimes there's studs and nuts throughout the vehicle that you can use, or you might have to make your own ground. Now don't be intimidated by that. It's pretty easy. And here you have the wire that's going to go through the firewall that's going to connect to your switch. It's a yellow wire. You just connect the two yellow wires together going through the firewall. So you can see on this wiring harness we have another ground connection we need to make and then another positive connection. Now it's always good for this positive connection to be on switch power so that when your vehicle is in the run position that this wire is hot, or you have battery positive there, and when the key is off, that this battery is not hot, so that the switch power turns off, and I'll show you how to find that later. And then that wire runs over to the connector for your switch. Now this switch is going to go in the dash. You're going to find an area to put this switch, line this up, and click it in place. So you have your two grounds that you have to hook up, and then you have your two positives. This is the positive that is hooked up to hot all the time. And then this is your positive that's switch positive. So emulating that, I'm just going to push this on. And then you can see the switch lights up. And when you want to use them, just push the switch and you can see the two lights turning on. So let's take this apart and install it in the vehicle. We're going to need to access the back side of this cover. So from underneath, we'll take this panel off, take these screws out. Use a 10mm socket. Take these two screws out. Then with the trim tool, just pop this pin out. Just slide that down, out of your way. Now we can pop this off. There's a couple of clips right there. You can push on those. Just use the trim tool. And the top ones. Just push it through. Slides right up. So you can see the new fog light is going to go in from the back side. So you're going to have to slide it in here. And this little ear right here is going to go under this slot. Just like that. Get that lined up. And then we're going to take two screws that will drill into plastic. You can use some small sheet metal screws, and one's going to go right there and one's going to go right there. So there and there on the inside. So we'll do that, line that up, get those screws. Take a screw, line that up, Snug that down. Right there. Take another screw, put one on this side. See right there. And get that started and snug that down. Now take the bezel, line that up, and lock it in place. Then you can do the same on the other side. On this vehicle, the battery and also the fuse box is on the driver's side. So if you're going to tap into the positive feed on this side, you're going to need to run the wires over here. So the furthest wire out is going to be for the passenger side fog light, which is right here. So all these other wires are just going to get taped together and go towards the driver's side. So let's wire this in first. So we'll slide this down here. You want to find a way where you can access down below. Again, away from any moving parts. You don't want it near any serpentine belts or fans or anything. Then we're going to wire this in. This is going to all go towards the driver's side. That can just be loose like that for now. Now we can plug this into the fog light, lock it in place. So we have these two wires coming out. We'll just slide this one to the side for now so we're not confused. And we see where the plug is for the other fog light. We're gonna just slide this over here. On the other side of the battery, I can see where there's light from underneath the vehicle. And just route this down below here. And we'll secure that later. Now let's go plug that light in as well. And connect that connector, line that up, and we'll tie this down later. The connectors are both connected to the fog lights themselves. We need to find a ground for this piece, and for the other wire, we're going to need a power for this piece. So let's find the power first. An easy solution would be on the battery. If you have a battery set up like this, you could just go right here and just get another nut. You just want to clean that up a little bit. You could pull that nut off and put it underneath here, but it'd be better to just add a nut if possible. So that's one solution. Or even better, going over to the fuse box underneath here. You can find a terminal that doesn't have a fuse in it and tap into that. That would be nice and easy. And then also again, where there is a stud that has positive power to it all the time, you could just put a nut on top of that. So that will work. So those are some options for you. Every car is a little bit different. That's the way this car is set up. So one of the ways you can tell if you have power is with a test light. Put one side on the ground and then check for power. And there's power there, there's power there. See, there's no power there and no power there. So what we're going to do is use a terminal end. We'll splice into the wire and we'll attach it right there. And that's going to be good because there is a fuse on this circuit. So it's not like you're putting a circuit together with no fuse. So we're all set with that. They also make jumper harnesses that will piggyback off the fuse. You can pull the fuse out. The fuse has an external fuse holder in it, and so it's going to steal the power from where the fuse gets it, but it will also use the fuse, and then it'll have its own fuse where you can get the power off. So you could get one of those if this doesn't work for you. I am going to route this underneath the battery hold down. Then we'll have the wire coming up on the side over here. Again, I'm not going to secure anything down yet until we're done, but we just want to get close. And I don't need all this wire, so we'll just cut it back to right about there is good. Cut that wire. Use some wire strippers. Just twist the wire a little bit. Put the terminal on, or the connector, and just crimp it down. Give it a shake. It's nice and tight. Come in under here. That's going to go right there. Push that down. And there is an area over here where I can run the wire through, just for the cover, so when the cover's on, it's not going to squish the wire. And that's good. You can put the cover back on, just like that. That's out of the way. With the ground wire, we can literally put it anywhere that's attached to metal as long as we clean it up. If we wanted to go under here or right here on the battery, we can. That just needs to be cleaned up. It might be best to do it over here. Loosen up this. Take that out. Just take a wire brush to clean that up a little bit. That's pretty clean. Sometimes there's some studs in the area, and that might be a little better if you had that, but this will work. And we can put the bolt back in. Make sure the bolt's clean as well. No corrosion on the bolt. Get that in there. And snug that down. That's good right there. Make sure that wire's out of the way. Now, because we scratched the paint a little bit, we'll just get a little bit of touch-up paint and just put some on there. Just coat that. It doesn't matter what color it is because this is under the hood, so you're not going to see it. If you prefer the color of the car, then go ahead. But that's good, just to prevent any further corrosion. Now, the last wire we have under the hood here is the one that needs to go through the firewall. So every vehicle is a little bit different. There is a grommet right here where you can see other wires going through the firewall. So we're going to run the wire underneath and up to that grommet. Not near any moving components, again. So this grommet already has a hole, so I don't have to rerun a hole or drill a hole through. They do make special tools that you can drill a hole with or push a hole through. Now we're going to have to locate it on the inside. To access that, we're going to have to take this panel off. There's Phillips head screws. Just use a Phillips head screwdriver. Take that out. In the middle there's a clip. And there should be a Phillips head screw on the other side. This vehicle doesn't have it. All right, so our wires did not go through all the way. So what we're gonna need to do is use a tool like this. This has a sharp tip on the end of it, and then you can feed wires through here. Now just make sure as you slide this through, you wanna check the wires on the outside and find the direction of the wires because you don't wanna stab into the wires. If you stab into the wires, then it's just gonna be a mess. I know on the outside, the wires go from here and they go towards the passenger side of the car. So if I stab over here, I will be safe, going more towards the driver's side. There, right there. Now you can see where that went. Now we can fish this wire in there. For this, I just pushed in the end of it and it's stuck in there pretty good, so I should be able to pull this through and have no problem. Otherwise, you could also use some tape and just put some tape around it. So let's pull that through. Right, and then pulled it through. So I got the wire right there. Just pull that a little bit more. There it is. It's inside the cab. Now we got that wire through. That was the hard part. Now we need to figure out where we're going to put the switch and wire in these circuits. For this vehicle, it looks like a good spot for the switch would be right here. You can just use a trim tool, get underneath here, or a pick. And just take this little cover off. And there's plenty of room behind it, so we're going to put the switch there. Take this panel off. Just use a trim tool, just get behind. And then it just slides forward. It's just got some push pins holding it in. To make this a little easier, I am going to pull this panel off. I'll just take a pick, just get under this cover here. There's a screw in there. Take that screw out, Phillips head, pull that out. Then using a trim tool, just go around the edge. We'll just pop the panel out. It's just got push pins holding it in. It comes right out. Just hold it to the side. If you want to, you can disconnect the connectors. Otherwise, it will be fine like that. Now take the switch, slide it into the panel, just like that. This one fits nice. And connect the connector. Just like that, that's attached. Now the other end of the connector, the wires. So the yellow wire is going to go to the wire we sent through the firewall. The red wire is ignition power or switch power. So basically when you turn the key on, that is hot, and then a ground. So the ground's going to be easy. We can find that anywhere. The harder part is finding out where we can find ignition power. Right under here we have a fuse box. You can take the cover off right there, and we can figure out what fuse that we can tap into. Right here we have the washer circuit. That would be a safe circuit to jump into. If you have one of those piggyback adapters that you can use on this, that would be a good fuse to go into, the 15 amp fuse. So take it off one of those fuses right there. You could also go in right here. Let's see, where there's an empty fuse, there's power there. So if we turn the key off, we can see the power goes away. The only problem with that is there's not going to be a fuse to protect the circuit. Yes, it's a low amperage circuit, but it would be ideal to be off of a fuse. So I'm going to pull that fuse out and use this fuse jumper. That'll plug into there. And then you can wire in the wire right here and just make sure you have 2 fuses in there. And that'll work. All right, so we found where our power is going to go. I don't need all this extra wire, so I'm going to cut this back. I can cut into it right here. Just be careful. We don't want to stab the wire that we're trying to bring back here. So we're just looking for the red wire. So just using a pick. There's the red wire. And we'll just pull that through. Let's cut it back here. Pull that through. Strip this wire back. Use a butt connector, connect the 2 wires together, just like that, and we'll crimp it down. Just give it a wiggle. Oh, it's still a little loose, I'm going to crimp it a little harder, a little tighter. So now that's all set, and I just Even though it's on the interior of the car, I did heat up the shrink wrap and shrunk it down. It's a better connection. Now we'll slide this through here. We can plug this into that circuit where the fuse is going to go. Just plug that in there, and then tuck that out of the way. This other wire is going to come in, slide this through. And we want these two to connect. Obviously, you don't want to go over your brake pedal. You want to find an area where you can go around. On this side, there's actually a bunch of areas where you could attach a ground to. There's a lot of metal. And what we want to do is go on the inside here. A screw right there would be good. You can go under the plastic and attach to that screw because it's attached to metal behind there. Metal right there, any of those will do. So any of that. So what we want to do is take off some more of this insulation because we don't need this to go all the way to the connector, or we're not going to have enough slack on that. So we'll just separate these two wires. Just take some cutters, slice down, and then normally you can just pull it apart pretty easily. Slide the wire, yellow wire out, and the black wire for the ground. Go there, just cut right there. I'm actually going to use this bolt right here. I'm just going to use a 12mm ratchet wrench, loosen that up. I don't have to take it out completely because the way this is, it's slotted. Just slide it in there. I have to spread it a little. And then tighten that down. Snug that down. Any extra wire, you can just wire tie out of the way. Now with the yellow wire, we're going to run this over the brake pedal, behind everything. And we can attach the two ends together, just like that. And just make sure none of the wire is exposed, or any of the metal pieces. You can put a little electrical tape over that too. That would just be a little safety precaution. All right, so now we're gonna move this. Make sure it's not near any moving components. Just try to make it look as nice as possible. And we'll just take our wire ties. Not too snug. And just do the same the rest of the way. Get it out of the way. If you have excessive wire, you can curl it up and just wire tie it. Secure that down. Trim the excess. Those are all secure and out of the way. Now we can button this stuff up on the inside. Just push this panel in. Put this screw in here, snug that down, and this cover is going to go right there, and the side cover is going to go on. There we go. It's all lined up. Now this cover is going underneath. Line this up. All right. Going to go in there and put these two screws in right there and right there. Snug those down. Snug. And we want to wire tie this wire. Just work your way out from the firewall. Just secure the wire, make sure it's not going to rub on anything important. And just trim the excess. And then with this relay box, you want to screw this in somewhere. Just take a sheet metal screw, or even a wire tie if you want to drill a hole. We'll just screw that in right there. That's out of the way. There's nothing on the back side of that. Make sure you don't screw into something where you're going to screw into wires. Like you don't want to go on the side of the fuse box or anything. But that's out of the way. It's good. It's secure. For these wires, to make them look a little nicer, I'm going to put them under these brackets. Just using a 12mm socket. Take the bracket off real quick. Slide the wires underneath. And you can put the bracket right back on. Put the bolt in. Snug it down. Slide all those in place. Do the same on this end. Just make it look a little more factory looking. If you feel like you need to secure the wire somewhere under here, you can. We are in pretty good shape, so we don't have to. This is good. Now we'll slide this back in place. That's going to go above that. Get the screws started. Right there. Right there. Then the push pin right here. Lock that down, tighten these down. Snug those down, and then do the same on the other side.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.